Welcome to Have You Read It, the channel where we bring books to life, one summary at a time. Today we're diving into Chip War, the Fight for the World's Most Critical Technology, by Chris Miller. This book isn't just about tech. It's a thrilling narrative about geopolitics, economics, and the fascinating history of the tiny devices that power our modern world, semiconductors. Miller starts by painting a vivid picture of the world in 2020, specifically the Taiwan Strait, where the USS Mustin sailed as a show of force against China's growing influence. This scene highlights the growing tension between the US and China, and how much of that tension revolves around chips. China's tech giant, Huawei, found itself in a chokehold due to US restrictions on accessing advanced chips made with American technology. This event made it clear just how vital semiconductors are, not just for consumer electronics, but for national security and global power. Miller then takes us back to the origins of the chip, beginning with the post-World War II world. He introduces key figures like Akio Morita of Sony, Morris Chang, later the founder of Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, and Andy Grove of Intel, all of whom experienced the devastating impact of the war firsthand and played crucial roles in the semiconductor revolution. The book emphasizes that World War II was a war of industrial production, a typhoon of steel. But the seeds of a new kind of war, one driven by computing power, were already being sown. Morita's work on heat-seeking missiles foreshadowed this shift. The development of early computers, from mechanical devices to vacuum tube-based behemoths like ENIAC, highlights the limitations of these technologies and the growing need for a smaller, faster, and more reliable switch. The invention of the transistor at Bell Labs in 1947 by Bardeen, Braden, and Shockley provided that switch. This breakthrough, initially seen as useful mainly for telephone networks, would eventually become the foundation of the digital age. Shockley's subsequent attempts to commercialize the transistor in Silicon Valley, and the traitorous 8 engineers who left his company to found Fairchild Semiconductor, marked the true beginning of Silicon Valley. The launch of Sputnik in 1957 spurred the U.S. government to invest heavily in catching up with the Soviets, creating the first major market for integrated circuits, notably in the Apollo program and the Minuteman II missile. This military demand drove innovation and spurred the development of mass production techniques, especially photolithography, pioneered by J. Lathrop, which used light to etch circuits onto silicon. These innovations turned chips from expensive bespoke items into mass-produced components and paved the way for the civilian computer market to take off. While the U.S. was forging ahead, the Soviet Union was trying to catch up by copying American technology. They even built their own Silicon Valley called Zelenograd. But their copy-it strategy, driven by figures like Minister Shokin, ultimately failed because they lacked the manufacturing expertise and the dynamic interconnected ecosystem of Silicon Valley. Japan, on the other hand, took a different approach. They licensed transistor technology from the U.S. and focused on consumer electronics, becoming the transistor salesman to the world with products like Sony's transistor radios. This strategy, combined with lower labor costs and government support, allowed them to dominate the consumer electronics market. The Vietnam War, while a military defeat for the U.S., proved to be a testing ground for new weapons systems that integrated microelectronics, paving the way for precision-guided munitions. This development would be crucial for the next phase of the U.S. military's technological advantage. The 1980s saw Japan challenge the U.S. in the semiconductor market, particularly in DRAM chips. Figures like Richard Anderson at Hewlett-Packard highlighted the superior quality and reliability of Japanese chips. American companies struggled to compete, leading to accusations of unfair trade practices, industrial espionage, and calls for government intervention. The ensuing trade wars and government support efforts, like Sematech, attempted to revive the American chip industry, while figures like Akio Morita argued for Japan's right to say no to American demands. The American resurgence in the chip industry was driven by several factors. Entrepreneurs like Jack Simplot, the potato chip king, invested in companies like Micron, which focused on efficient, low-cost production of DRAM chips. At Intel, Andy Grove's paranoid management style led to a painful but necessary restructuring, including abandoning DRAMs and focusing on microprocessors, which powered the emerging PC market. Meanwhile, South Korea, with companies like Samsung, emerged as a major player, often working in partnership with American firms. These developments, combined with renewed government investment in research and development, helped to revitalize Silicon Valley and create new applications for chips, such as in wireless communications. While the US and its allies were competing and collaborating, the Soviet Union continued its efforts to steal technology through the KGB's Directorate T, even as its semiconductor industry continued to lag. The Persian Gulf War in 1991 showcased the power of American precision-guided weapons, a testament to the impact of microelectronics on military power. This demonstration hastened the decline of the Soviet Union, whose outdated military technology could not compete. The post-Cold War era saw a shift in the geography of chip production, with Taiwan emerging as a major player under the leadership of Morris Chang and TSMC. Chang's foundry model, which separated chip design from manufacturing, revolutionized the industry and allowed for greater specialization. While other Asian countries like Singapore and South Korea continued to invest in chip fabrication, China began its own efforts to build a domestic semiconductor industry, often relying on foreign investment and technology transfer. The development of extreme ultraviolet lithography, crucial for continuing Moore's law, was a global effort, involving American national labs, Dutch company ASML, and German optics companies. This technology, which allowed for the creation of even smaller and more powerful chips, would become essential for the next generation of semiconductors. Intel, once the undisputed leader, faced an innovator's dilemma, as described by Clayton Christensen. It missed key opportunities in mobile devices and focused on its profitable PC market, even as Apple began designing its own chips and using foundries like TSMC. While Intel prioritized profit margins, others focused on innovation. This decision would cost Intel dearly as the mobile market exploded. The rise of fabless firms, like NVIDIA and Qualcomm, which designed chips but outsourced their manufacturing, further transformed the chip industry. This model, combined with the availability of advanced foundries like TSMC, allowed for greater specialization and innovation. TSMC's Grand Alliance, a partnership between chip designers, equipment manufacturers, and material suppliers, cemented its position at the center of the semiconductor ecosystem. Apple's decision to design its own chips, known as Apple Silicon, further demonstrated the power of this model, while the complex, multinational supply chain for EUV lithography highlighted the increasing interconnectedness of the industry. Global Foundries, once seen as a potential rival to TSMC, abandoned the race to the bleeding edge of chip technology, further concentrating manufacturing in East Asia. This decision underscored the enormous costs and complexity of advanced chipmaking, even as Intel struggled to maintain its lead in manufacturing and missed opportunities in emerging markets like AI. China's renewed push for semiconductor self-sufficiency, driven by Xi Jinping's call for a technological assault, combined market forces with government directives. China's efforts to acquire foreign technology through partnerships and acquisitions, however, raised concerns about intellectual property theft and national security in the US and elsewhere. Huawei's rise as a global tech giant and its efforts to design its own chips further intensified these concerns. Huawei's leading position in 5G technology underscored the strategic importance of semiconductors, while the Pentagon's own efforts to develop a next offset strategy highlighted the military implications of the chip war. The Trump administration's escalating trade war with China and its focus on Huawei and other Chinese tech companies marked a turning point in U.S. technology policy. The use of export controls as a weapon against Chinese firms like ZTE and Fujian Jinhua, which had been accused of intellectual property theft, demonstrated the power of U.S. dominance in the semiconductor supply chain. China's efforts to build a domestic NAND memory chip industry, exemplified by YMTC, faced both successes and setbacks, highlighting the challenges of catching up with established players. The 2021 chip shortage exposed the world's dependence on semiconductors and spurred governments to invest in domestic chip production, while the increasing concentration of advanced chip-making in Taiwan raised geopolitical concerns, particularly given China's ambitions toward the island. The Russia-Ukraine war further highlighted the strategic importance of semiconductors, as Russia struggled with chip shortages, and the US and its allies used export controls as a weapon. The main takeaway from chip war is that semiconductors are not just another commodity. They are the foundation of modern technology, economic power, and military strength. The book provides several key heuristics to remember. Moore's law is not a law of nature, but a self-fulfilling prophecy, driven by human ingenuity, economic incentives, and geopolitical competition. The semiconductor industry is defined by choke points, with a few companies controlling key technologies and materials. Globalization in chipmaking is less about geographical dispersion and more about the integration of specialized firms across national borders. The US-China chip war is not just a trade dispute, it is a struggle for control over the future of technology and global power. Thanks for watching. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button so you never miss our next book dive.